process. So, shalom and welcome to all of our audience from all over the world. My name is Yehuda Michael. I'm a program director at MCTC. Thank you for joining us today. My colleague Nuria Levy and I are very excited to have you with us for the final meeting of the lecture series titled Advancing Leadership Skill to Women. The overall objective of the series is to empower women to develop the essential strategies and mindset needed to them maximize leadership potential and successfully achieve professional goals. On the series, we invited one Israeli and one Mashab alumni to speak, following up by question and answer from the audience. So please remember to ask questions. The series holds three meetings. For the first meeting in January, we focused on developing a personal brand and discussed personal branding strategies and challenges that women facing in leadership. For the second meeting in February, we discussed strategic thinking method. And for our final meeting today, we will focus on decision-making skills. Just to tell you a little bit about who we are as an organization, MCTC is founded in 1961 by two visionary women, our former Prime Minister Golda Meir and Mina Ben-Zvi, MCTC's founding director, through Mashab Israel Agency for International Development Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And MCTC is focusing on three main areas. The first one is entrepreneurship and innovation. The second one is early childhood education, and the third one is sustainable community development. We believe in women's contribution to the society as well as to a country's economy. So we stress gender equality is the key for sustainable development. Before we start some logistics, we're recording this meeting and later on post it into our YouTube channel for those who did not make it to be with us today live. If you do not want to be recorded, please turn off your camera. Without further ado, let's move to today's speaker. I am pleased to introduce you to one of our speakers for today, Esther Kapisa Chisanga, a Mashab alumni from Zambia. Esther Kapisa Chisanga is the Chief Exclusive Officer of Auxiliary Management Service Limited in Zambia, a human resource advisory firm. She has over 20 years experience in human resource and industrial relations matter. She has been trained as an arbiter for the Chartered Institute of Arbitration in the United Kingdom and is also certified mediator in the High Court of Zambia, the Civil and Labor Division. In addition, Esther holds a bachelor degree in business administration from Newport University in California, USA, as well as a Bachelor of Law from Latham University. Thank you, Esther, for joining us today. Please take it from here. Esther? I think you're muted, so we can't hear you. That happened a lot to me too, so don't worry.
Hi, I've just done that. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Yehuda, for the introduction. First of all, I want to appreciate Mashab for giving me this opportunity to come and share little knowledge that I've had in my leadership role as a woman, and hopefully and trust that this information that we're going to share today is going to impact somebody and hope to be utilized to the benefit of everybody. So thank you so much. I have done a presentation, which is about 11 slides, which can be shared with the participants later on after the presentation. In this presentation that I've done is basically looking at a woman in leadership, not only a woman in leadership, even you as a man, but while we are looking at advancing leadership skills for women, in the presentation that I've prepared is basically what are the skills that a leader has to have in terms of decision making. So in my first slide, basically I've just done the introduction talking about a woman being a leader, and it's very important. Maybe you can go to the first slide, Nuria. So in the first slide, we've looked at a woman being a leader, of course, when we're talking about leadership or who a leader is, a leader, I look at a leader being somebody who's got influence on other people in order for them to fulfill an intended vision and objective. So we are living in a world where women were not recognized as leaders. They were all thought of, you have to be in the kitchen, you have to take care of the children, while men have gone to work, and after working, they can go for and have a drink, etc. And because of that mindset, women have been thinking like they're inferior, they're not leaders. But in the actual sense, they are leaders, because you can imagine all the great men and women who have been raised and are ruling in this world, they have been raised by women. So therefore, irrespective of where you are operating from, a woman is a leader, whether it's at home, at work, we are all leaders. So when we go in the next slide, we can go to the next slide. Of course, while we are living in a changing environment and the changing world, women are now being incorporated with their leadership skills to take up corporate leadership roles. And it is motivating and encouraging that women are now taking up these roles. Like, as you're aware, Tanzania lost their sitting president. May so rest in peace, but the new president is a woman. So that's already a plus to show that women are now taking up these responsibilities to execute their leadership roles in the corporate world. But it is very important that while we are also assuming roles as leaders, we have a time frame. You're not going to be a leader forever. You'll find you'll be retired, your contract comes to an end, or just something comes up, and then you have to relinquish that leadership role. And therefore, it is very important that when a woman is in leadership, there are decisions that you need to make, there are steps that you need to take, that decisions that you have to take and follow. Okay, are you able to take me to the next slide, Nuria? Okay, so while you have got a time frame to be in leadership, there are tasks that you as a leader, you have to undertake. And that is number one, you have to delegate. Number two, you have to supervise, you have to guide, you have to teach, and you have to decide. A leader is a driver of a vision that the organization has in place. So these are some of the tasks that while you are holding the role of a leader, you make these tasks. You have to delegate of what you want your subordinates to do. You have to supervise your subordinates to ensure that they're doing the right assignment. You have to guide them because you are a mentor, you are a coach. You have to teach your subordinates what you want them to do, and you have to decide. And in this regard, based on today's session, when you are deciding, that is where now you have to make decisions. So we can go to the next slide. Nuria, okay. So one of the assignments we have as a leader is basically making decisions. And as a leader, when you are making a decision, it is very important that the decision is to the benefit of others and your organization. As a leader, you're always there to oversee that and be responsible that matters are benefiting the people you're leading as a team, as well as the institution at large. We can go to the next slide. So while we have looked at some of the tasks that you as a leader, you are being given to execute decisions on, there are some steps which I would love us to share in our leadership work, especially as women. At times you find that decisions that are made through duress, through society pressure, through a number of issues. But it is important when you're making a decision, you have to think of the decision that I'm making on behalf of my organization or on my own behalf, is it legal? I know we've got participants from all over the world, and we have different laws governing the laws of the land where we fall under. And when we are making these decisions, we need to understand and we need to know what is the law of the land. Are we acquainted as a leader to know what the law has provided? Therefore, the decision that you are making, it must ensure that it does not conflict with any legal provision. Because if you end up making a decision that will end up inflicting or in conflict with the legal provision, you find that at the end of the day, there are repercussions. They could be criminal or civil. Therefore, this is very important that when we are making a decision, is it illegal? Is it within the confines of the law? I'll quote from the book called The Power of Ethical Management, written by Branchard and Norman, in which I like this quote, which says, there is no pillow as soft as a clear conscience. So therefore, when we are making these decisions, it's very important that our conscience will no longer be haunting us for the rest of our lives. Then when we are making the decisions, again, is it balanced? Is it something that is going to benefit everybody? How will it make you feel about it? Let's take, for instance, if it is published in the papers, or if your family knew about it, it's something that you're going to be happy about, and then you're saying, okay, I think I did make a good decision. So therefore, when we're making decisions, we must ensure that it's a win-win situation for everybody as a leader. At times, I know it is very difficult to make a decision which you try to impress or to satisfy everybody, but it must be decisions that at the end of the day, you will feel even good about yourself that it was a balanced decision. We can go to the next slide. So basically, this is just a summary of the steps in decision making. And as a woman, when a woman assumes a leadership role, as a leader, as a woman, of course, you have been climbing through the corporate ladder, and you find yourself, you have been given a position like myself of CEO. And being a chief executive officer, I have a team that I'm leading. And the company has already given me the vision of the company, where they want to be the next 5 years, etc. So some of the decision-making skills that a leader should have, I know there are many others, but for the purpose of this presentation, I've picked 4. I've picked teamwork, time management, problem solving, and emotional intelligence. So I feel as a woman, as you are raising in your corporate ladder, these are some of the skills that you need to work on, you need to improve on. Under teamwork, they say no man is an island, and same applies in leadership. You can't achieve any agenda without having a solid team of people to work with. And as you work with your team, you need to work on your teamwork skills. Teamwork is very important because you need to achieve the vision of the institution you are working under. Even you as an individual, you have your own vision. You cannot say that I want to achieve this vision alone. You are going to go maybe ask your children to be cleaning the house for you. If that's your vision, to be saying, I want to declutter. You are going to ask your children to come and help you offload the dirty, clean the yard. So teamwork is very, very important in leadership and in decision making. Then when we come to problem solving, they say the taste of the apple is in the eating, while others say the taste of the pudding is in the eating. While in leadership, we'll always be tested through challenges that we face. And through this, we need to work on our problem-solving skills, because as a leader, you're going to face challenges. You're going to have a number of situations. How do you ensure that your institution is running? Like, I can give you an example. One of our workers tested positive for COVID, and we have clients to service. What did we need to do? We had now to solve this situation by ensuring our offices were disinfected and everybody started working from home to ensure that we are servicing our clients. So the leader must work on their problem solving skills in order to ensure that their leadership skills, while it's being sharpened, you are also going to show others that you are a true leader and you are a strong leader. Then when we go to emotional intelligence, we are living in a world where a number of issues are happening around. Well, when you go to the Help Guide article on mental health and emotional intelligence has been defined in different ways by many scholars, but we can simply say it's to understand the use of your emotions in a positive way, to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. This is something that we need to work on as leaders, because we have a team of people that we are leading that is coming from different backgrounds. They've got different situations, they've got different foundations as we lead our people. And therefore, you as a leader, you must acquire this skill, you must improve on it, because you could find maybe somebody comes from home, that had just a disturbing environment. Maybe their neighbor did something bad, and as they come for work, it's affecting their productivity. And you as a leader, you must know how to nurture the emotions, or rather how to manage you must have the emotional intelligence skill to ensure to manage your team, that even when we've got challenges, you're able to bring them together, that you work as a team irrespective of the background that we are coming from. So I think that should be the last slide, if not mistaken. Nulia? That should be the last slide. So basically, in conclusion, these are some of the skills that as leaders, we need to ensure that we work on, and we should be of benefit to the people we are leading around us, and that even when we move on, or rather when that position, we no longer have it, we are going to leave a legacy. It's going to stand the test of time, that people are going to say, we had this leader and this is what we implemented. You can imagine right now, I'm a Mashav alumni. I am a beneficiary of what I was trained at Mashav, because somebody started that vision and she passed it on properly to the people who she was working with. And now we are even seated here benefiting from Mashav and the Godemea Training Institute. So as leaders, I hope and trust the little presentation that I had prepared will be of benefit, and we'll be able to help each other in some of the steps and skills that I've shared with. Thank you so much. I don't know, Nuria, Yehuda?
We're here. Thank you so much for your presentation. And we are going to save the questions for Esther for later on. We now want to move on with our next speaker for today, Monica Rosalza. I don't know if I pronounced that properly, probably not. So I do apologize, Monica, if I got it wrong. Monica has co-founded and served until August 2020 as the CEO of Creators, an innovation lab based in Tel Aviv that supports organizations in developing and improving innovation practices throughout a full range of workshops and innovation programs. Monica's expertise includes corporate innovation, startups ecosystems, ideation methodologies, and building and facilitating innovation programs. Before founding Creators, Monica was the Deputy Director of the Hive, a startup accelerator program for international teams in Israel. She has studied law, German law, and applied linguistics in Warsaw and Bonn before moving to Israel 5 years ago. Monica, thank you so much for being with us today. It's really a pleasure to see you again. Hopefully, we'll see you in person very soon, now that we're starting to open in our country. But we're still waiting to receive all our participants back here in Haifa. And again, we do hope to have them soon with us. So I'll leave you the floor to you. And as I said, later on, we'll be taking questions for both of our speakers.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nuria. And hello, everyone. It's wonderful to have you here. Let me just quickly share my presentation with you so that we are ready to start. Just a moment. Okay, so I hope by now you can see it very well. Thank you, Nuria, for this kind introduction. As Nuria has said, I call myself a reluctant entrepreneur because it wasn't my choice at the time 6 years ago to start an organization, and it happened. It was a choice that I made at the time. We're talking today about decision making, so it was kind of a decision that I kind of subconsciously made. It wasn't something that I thought about it a lot. I just jumped into some project that turned out to be a full-time venture. And since then, I found myself, in the position of becoming an entrepreneur, a CEO. These days, after a couple of months of a break, I'm going into a different direction and a new venture next month. But until then, I'm looking forward to spending a couple of minutes with you, sharing with you my decision-making approach. So before we jump in, I just want to, just a moment. Doesn't seem to work. So. Okay, fantastic. It does work. So before I start with the first part, I want to give you a short overview of what I'm going to share with you. So I want to start with a couple of minutes talking about the Israeli Startup Nation, because this is where I work. This is where I've been working for the last 8 years. And I think it has a lot to do with the way I make decisions, and many of my friends and colleagues, and basically many entrepreneurs and innovators in Israel. So I would like to give you some context about decision-making in Israel. Then I would be happy to jump into 3 different cases. So how I make decisions in business, how I make decisions in hiring, and how I approach my personal decisions. And then some key basically takeaways that I want to share with you just to wrap it up. So that's the kind of program for the next couple of minutes. Okay, so about Israeli Startup Nation, I'm pretty sure that you all are quite familiar with Mashav and what Israel is about, and many of you have been in Israel. So just a very short wrap up. So as you know, Israel is an immigration nation. So it's a land of pioneers. There are very scarce natural resources in here. And so a lot of things that are happening in Israel are really, they are happening because of people, because of immigrants. I'm an immigrant myself, and I think it influences the way I approach decision-making and risk-taking, which is very much, aligned with the decision-making methodologies myself. The second thing that is very, very important to take into account is that Israeli culture is a culture of directness, a culture of chutzpah, which is basically, not stopping at anything to get your way if you want to really achieve something. And also something that is called tachles. Tachles means to the point, just go ahead and do something, or go ahead and say something. So there is not a lot of kind of like in between, there is a lot of directness involved in this culture. And what is also connected to that is this the fact that Israelis very often are not afraid, or at least are less afraid than, for example, my European colleagues, to fail. So there is a culture of embracing this trial and error periods. And I think this is also incredibly important when it comes to decision making. The fact that you make decisions quickly and without this fear of failing has a lot to do with the way how we basically make decisions a lot of times in the innovation space, in the business space, and I will talk about it in a moment. When it comes to the military service, something that you may have heard about, Israelis do their military service when they are very young, and the way a lot of military service is done here in Israel is that very young people of 18 and 19 years old, both men and women, just go to the army and they start solving problems. And this solving problem skill, again, very much related to decision making, is about, putting into the hands of very, very young people the ability to influence what's happening. So again, Israelis, I think as a nation, as a culture, are very much used to making a lot of decisions or taking a lot of responsibilities. And finally, there is a lot of government support related to starting a company, starting a venture, creating a research and development project, or any sort of technology. So again, it's when the government is supporting your venture with some funding that you can get, that is not that is kind of a way for you to, again, to try and maybe to fail and maybe to improve. So there is a lot of space that is being created in Israel for Israeli founders to just, try things out and see if they are working. So I think all of these things are really related to how Israelis make decisions in a daily life. And just to wrap things up, so I think the Israeli culture has a lot of influence on decision making, in that, first of all, decisions generally in Israel, and I think Israelis have a tendency to make things fast and to decide very quickly. And fast pace is really a choice, We are all working in different organizations, small and large, and sometimes there is this tendency to think, oh, we are too big to be so quick, to be so fast as an organization. But there are some organizations around the world that are really huge. Apple, Google, Amazon, and they are quite fast in their decision-making processes, which means that we can all be. And again, I will be talking about it in a moment, but I think this is something that Israeli culture really, allows or facilitates a lot. People in Israel are pretty quick in making decisions. The second thing that is very much related to the fact that we are a very small country, which is trying to solve technological problems around the world, is that you have to face global competition. So there is a lot of competition around the world. And that means that, again, if you want to succeed, you need to be fast, you need to be decisive, and you need to know where you're going in the world. What are the geographies that you want to enter? Again, very much related to how Israeli companies, Israeli leaders make decisions. Also very, very important in the Israeli culture is the fact that a lot of decisions, of course, they are as fast as they can be, but they are a lot of times based on some research, based on some data. So basically, technological companies love data. We have a lot of technological companies in Israel, and thus there is a lot of decision-making approach that is actually backed by data. There is also a lot of autonomy given to employees when decision making. So a lot of companies, especially Israeli startups, this is where I come from, Israeli startups are putting a lot of autonomy, a lot of responsibility in the hands of their teams, because I will talk about it later, but this is a good way to make your employees more dedicated to their jobs and make your employees more engaged in what they do, giving them this power and this ability to understand that they actually make a difference. There is the methodology in the startup world that I will not talk about a lot, but I just wanted to mention it here, where you basically, as a startup, as a company, as an NGO, doesn't matter what you do, it's really good to think about your decisions or about your actions as a, like a cycle that is coming back. So first of all, you build something, then you should measure it. You should see if it makes sense. Then you learn from it, and then you change if needed, and then go back, build, measure, learn, and change. And this is something that I think is very important for any type of organization and any type of activity that you do as a professional woman, as a professional person. So I encourage you to look at your activities in this way, and decision making is a part of it. So of course we make a decision, we see if this decision was right, we learn from it, and we can always change it. We can always change the decision that is not necessarily the right. one. And finally, last but not least, Israeli culture really, as I mentioned before, promotes failing fast. If you see that you're not going in the right direction, just cut your losses quickly, move ahead, to the next point, to the next thing, to the next venture, to the next project, whatever it is that you do. So these are the things that I just wanted to show you quickly, where the Israeli culture is really influencing the way decision making is being done by many of my colleagues, and it also influences the way I approach decisions. So now moving on to the second part of this short presentation, I wanted to share with you some ways where in which I make decisions in three different aspects. First of all, in business. Second of all, in hiring people. And third, in personal life. So I hope these couple of methods, if you want to call them like that, that you may know are helpful. They have been very, very helpful to me, and I hope they will be helpful to you as well. So jumping into the business decisions. Business decisions, I like to use the methodology that you may know of one-way door decisions and two-way door decisions. And I think this is incredibly useful when it comes to decision-making in your workplace. So one-way door decisions are basically strategic decisions that are irreversible or they are very difficult to roll back. These decisions aren't typically urgent and should be made with deliberation and data-based analyses. So when we talk about one-way door decision, you can really imagine the one-way door that closes and you cannot go back. This is the sort of decision that we're talking about. It's a decision that has consequences for your activities that cannot be easy to push back. You cannot change it easily. And so when making a decision of that kind, you should really do your homework. And this is where you actually need to think about it. Not to take things too quickly, and just to make sure that you understand all the implications of your decision before you make it. On the other hand, the two-way door decisions are those decisions that can be reversed or rolled back without excessive time or effort. These decisions typically benefit from speed, and so they can and should be made fast or even automated. So think about it as a two-way door where you just can, open the door, go through the door, see if you like what you see, and go back in if you don't like the view. And this is something that is very, very important because, if you think about it, most of the decisions that we do are actually two-way door decisions. We can always try things out and come back. And this is where decisions that are made fast really benefit from this, from this space. So what I do in my work life is that, first of all, I'm asking myself, is this a one-way door decision? Is it a two-way door decision? Usually it's quite easy to figure it out. And once I understand that it's a two-way door decision, which means that it may take some effort to take it back, but it's not going to have a major influence on the strategy, on the business, on the direction. It is worthwhile to try and make the decision as quickly as possible and not to waste too much energy or effort on that. So this is the way I approach decisions. A couple of things to take in mind when it comes to this methodology of one and two-way door decision. So first of all, understand the decision type that you deal with. So as mentioned, if it's a two-way door decision, try not to spend too much time or effort thinking about it. If you have any available data or you can get it quickly, definitely do so. But if it's difficult to do, you don't need to, kind of wrap your head around it and take too much time, because time is money. And it takes so much energy and effort sometimes to make a decision. It's just not worth it. So just try to go along with thinking about, what type of decision is it. The second tip that I have for you is try changing a one-way door decision into a two-way door decision. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you want to roll out a new product, for example, and of course, rolling out a new product is a huge endeavor. Maybe you can do it to a specific number of people, just to your target audience, but to this first kind of testing audience, where you will get their feedback, you will get their thoughts. You will not roll out something that is huge, that costs a lot of money. So you will basically test your approach. If you have a business that is digital, it's even easier. Try A/B testing something, so try to, by A/B testing, I mean, you send it to a small group of people, or you send version A to a small group of people, version B to a small group of people, and you compare. So again, there are a lot of ways in which a decision that is big can be actually broken down to something smaller, to testing, to trying things out on a smaller scale, and then making sure that you are on the right track. The third thing that I wanted to share with you is that you can give as much authority as you can to your team over the two-way door decisions. So as mentioned, it is, in my opinion, as someone who has led teams, it is incredibly useful to put as many decisions that are two-way door decisions, not irreversible decisions, to the hands of your team members. It means that they will be more dedicated to their work. It means that they will have more fun with their work. It means that they will learn more. And basically, you as a leader is not going to be constantly in need of making a decision after decision, which may, a lot of times lead to a fatigue. When we need to take so many decisions in a day, and as a leader running an organization, that it is definitely the case for many of us, then it's good to just have some rest. And a lot of times you just can just pass it on to people who are competent to do this task for you. And finally, take responsible risks and plan for failures. So whenever we have to do with two-way door decisions, you can also, ask yourself, what's going to happen if this decision is not going to be the right one? What is our plan next? And in this even very, a very short exercise with your team, maybe you can actually understand what are the risks involved and plan ahead. So just to, I'll try to go back. Okay, just to quote a very smart decision maker, Jeff Bezos, one common pitfall for large organizations, one that hurts speed and inventiveness, is one-size-fits-all decision-making. And I couldn't agree more. So if we have just, one way of making decisions in an organization, regardless if we're talking about $50 decision or $500,000 decision, it just doesn't make any sense. So it should be diversified. So by the way, this idea of one-way door decisions and two-way door decisions was introduced by Jeff Bezos of Amazon. So if you want to read about it more, at the end of my presentation, I included some links that I find very useful to just have a look at this methodology even further. Now I want to jump into hiring decisions. Hiring decisions are incredibly important. So if you hire anyone to your team, how important it is to get the right fit, how much time it takes for everybody on the team, from the hiring, recruiting process through making sure that the person who has joined the team is actually feeling right and got all the training needed. So it's such an important decision for an organization, and it definitely should be made with the most relevant methodology out there. And I really enjoy the methodology introduced by Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman is a Israeli psychologist, and he was also, he received a Nobel Prize in psychology and economy for his ideas. And one of these ideas is related to how we can make decisions in a less biased way, more easily, to avoid mistakes. And this is a pretty interesting way to also incorporate this methodology in hiring decisions. And this is what I do, by the way. So starting from, the first steps in hiring, what I like to do is, first of all, I define approximately about 6 traits that are prerequisites for success in this position. So for example, when I know that I need to hire a project manager, I would think about the things that this person needs to have in this position in order to succeed. For example, autonomy. For example, reliability. Do I need some technical proficiency? And so on. I will just write down these traits, these, if you will, these personality traits that are incredibly important that I will be looking for in a perfect candidate. Next, once I have these traits should be different from one another and should be verifiable when asking subject matter tasks and behavioral questions. So what I mean by that, or what Daniel Kahneman means by that, is that you need to think about the traits that you can actually measure. If this is something that is incredibly vague, it's not going to be easy to say yes or no. So these are, is this person reliable? Yes or no? How do I check it? This is something that we need to take into account. I will give you an example of how to do it in a moment. Then once we have these traits, we make a list of questions for each one and define the score on the scale from 1 to 5, where 1 is very weak and 5 is very strong. So for example, if you want to check if a person has, let's say, has autonomy, what we can ask, usually these are the behavioral questions that we are asking. So we are asking about the past experience. We can ask this person, for example, tell me about a time when you created and ran a project on your own without help from others. Tell me about it. Tell me about what you did. And so in this question, you actually ask about the previous behavior of a person. And so it's, it will be the answer based on the fact on how the person actually created the project. And you will be able to see whether this response for you shows that they are very weak or very strong or somewhere in between in the autonomy that they are showing by giving you this example. The next thing, when we are already in an interview, ask at least 2-3 questions about each characteristic. So let's say that we have 5 traits that we are checking. We need to make sure that we have enough time to ask about each one at least 1, 2, 3 questions so that we have, the comparison. Only then move to the next trait that you have. Score each answer according to the defined scale at the time of the interview. Then don't change the ranking to accommodate your favorite candidate, because this is what's happening a lot. Once we like someone and we suddenly think, I like this person, I want this person to work with me, we start to, think, okay, this answer to this question wasn't so good, but you know what? There is something in it. And we start to kind of, make our own judgment. And this is what Daniel Kahneman says, don't do it. And finally, promise yourself that you will hire the person that objectively scores the highest, regardless of your personal preference. So that's what Daniel Kahneman says are the good hiring practices. And by the way, I can tell you that I'm using it in my professional career, and I really enjoy this process. And this is what he says in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, about it. A vast amount of research offers a promise. You are much more likely to find the best candidate if you use this procedure than if you do what people normally do in such situations, which is to go into the interview unprepared and make choices by an overall intuitive judgment, such as, I looked in his eyes and liked what I saw. And if we think about it, this is how we usually make hiring decisions. Normally, it's a bad idea, because what Daniel Kahneman says in his book, and if you are interested in that topic more broadly, I really encourage you to read it. What happens is that we have so many, mental shortcuts that we just don't know where we have these ideas from. And our intuition is only working out well if we have enough data. If we don't have data, it feels the same. It still feels like the same intuition, but it's just not working to our advantage. So just, I'm leaving you with that when it comes to hiring decisions. And I'm jumping to the last point, which is about personal decisions. And this is where I want to say that I like to ask myself about regret. Will I regret my decision? This is something that I am guided personally when I take a lot of decisions, especially the personal ones. So the question that bothers us a lot when we are making serious personal decisions often revolves around regret. So will I regret having or not having children? Will I regret not taking this opportunity, not taking this job, or taking it? Will I regret taking a break from professional life? Is it going to be a mistake, etc.? So for me personally, a good exercise is to see my future self. And this is how I decide whether I would maybe regret it or I wouldn't. So my future self is basically an exercise that says, what are the thoughts and images that come to mind when I picture myself at twice the age I am now, or what springs forth when I imagine my 85-year-old self who opted for X, and what I picture when I see my 85-year-old self that chose Y. So I'm basically trying to see how will I react, how will I see my decision in many, many years ahead when I'm wiser, when I see my life, as a continuum, as a whole. And this kind of guides the way I figure out the decisions. And this is not the concept that I have thought about myself. It's actually called regret minimization framework. And it says something very simple: project yourself forward to the age of 80 or 90 or 100 or whatever you prefer. Looking back on your life, do you want to minimize the number of regrets? What choices do you make? This is it, as simple as that. What is nice about this framework is that once you see yourself asking, your future self about it, you see that a lot of decisions that take a lot of our time and energy are not so important. So it kind of also takes away this weight of a lot of decisions that we take, and gives us this opportunity to just explore. Sometimes with some more serious decisions, of course, it takes time and effort to think about it. What I like doing in very big decisions that I'm taking is to write things down. So I'm actually, I'm doing exactly what I showed you, but I'm actually writing down the thoughts of my future self. And I'm just trying to figure out, how do I feel about it? Some decisions in my workplace that I make are also guided by these concepts, but usually I'm trying to stick to what I showed you regarding the business decisions, which is to first and foremost understand, is it a big or a small decision, and what data do I have? And then if I still need some guidance, I would also ask myself about, the regret, about, am I going to regret that we didn't take this project? Why would I regret it? Why wouldn't I regret that? So also this is something that you can use in other aspects of life, but especially in our personal decisions, I think it's a great way to look at decision making. So part 3, the last one, a few takeaways from what I just shared with you. So first of all, I want to come back very quickly to the beginning of my presentation. I showed you a couple of slides about Israeli ecosystem. And what I meant by that is that really Israeli entrepreneurs and startups make swift decisions because it's beneficial to them. And I think this is something that if you connect to this concept, you should try to to think about how you can speed up the decision-making processes in your organization, again, and if it's going to be beneficial for your organization. And in many ways it is. So if we are looking at what data says about decision-making in business, the majority of time we will discover that quick decision-making is beneficial for businesses. For example, Bain & Company carried out a 10-year research program involving more than 1,000 companies, which shows a clear correlation between decision effectiveness and business performance. I included this link at the end of this presentation, which you will get if you want to. And just to sum things up, so a few things that I wanted to, again, repeat very quickly. for me, quick decision-making, when possible, saves time and money. You can always come back to where you started, but making things, making decisions quicker usually is actually beneficial to the business. Second of all, slow decision-making negatively affects employees, something that I mentioned. If you are indecisive about decisions and people always wait for something to happen, usually it doesn't make them feel so engaged and dedicated. Quick decision-making is good for energy inside of a team. Also, quick decision-making relies on trust. So if you actually give some decision-making capability to your employees, you are building this trust relationship with them. Again, very beneficial for the business. Speed in business is a choice, in my opinion, and companies of any size can optimize for speed. So if you think that you should be making decisions quicker, you just need to figure out how, but it's always possible. In today's business world, swift decision-making is a competitive advantage because there are so many companies in every geography, in every industry. So actually making choices quicker can benefit your position in your specific market. Decision-making should involve calculating risk, not making rash choices. As mentioned, I'm not advocating here for uninformed, rash decisions. I'm just trying to show you that not all of the decisions need to have, half a year of vetting process in order to make them. And finally, when faced with a one-way door decision, take as much time as you can and rely on data. So if it's an important decision, definitely take your time and definitely check the data that is available to you. And these are the links that I promised. So following this presentation, you will also be able to look at it more quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much for your presentation. I love some of the aspects that you covered today. I love this two-way door that you describe. I think it's very, very true. And I also love very much, like I'm sure many of our participants, your description of how will you see yourself in the future and try to picture yourself. I actually try not to, because time is just running so fast. I try not to focus too much on that, but nevertheless, I think it's a great exercise. I'm totally with you on that one. And just to add about what you're saying about decision making to our audience, it's so true that we need to make decisions, and sometimes we get paralyzed by all the different information or our competitors or what's happening around us, that we forget to actually make that decision. And sometimes it's better to even make a bad decision, but like you were saying, Monica, move on from that, learn quickly and move on, than not to make any decision at all. So thank you again, both to Esther and Monica, for your presentations. I do have a few questions from our audience. Esther, I'm going to start with you. One of the questions that we had from our participants is that, are the challenges that you had faced as a female leader which have made you want to give up?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Yes, I faced challenges. I remember at one time I was once told that you cannot do it because you're a woman. And that is one of the challenges where there are some business environments where you're made to feel like only men do this. Who are you? What have you come to do? And the moment you check around, you find there are only men in that meeting. But you have to stand your ground and show them that no, the fact that I'm surrounded by men, I have the same right to make decisions with the men that are surrounding me. So yes, I faced challenges in my leadership journey. Thank
you so much, Esther. Monica, quickly, another question for you from our participants. They want to know, how did the pandemic affected the different startup companies in Israel, if you have any insight on that, and how they adjusted to this new reality.
So thank you for the question. Surprisingly, the first couple of months, were very much, I think they slowed things down in the Israeli ecosystem very much at the beginning. I'm talking about March, April, May. But following this first kind of lockdown that we all had in many countries, including in Israel, it actually ended up not affecting the startup ecosystem as much as we initially thought. So there were a lot of investments being made in Israel. A lot of startup companies raised money. A lot of startup companies in Israel became unicorns. So actually, when it comes to existing startups, it did not affect them so much in the in the long term. But we see that less startups were created in this period. So this is where we see a lot of influence.
Thank you so much. Esther, I've lost you there for a second. There you are. A question from another participant. From your presentation, you spoke about emotional intelligence, and they would like to know how can you actually improve your emotional intelligence. Excuse me.
Okay, so first of all, how can one improve on the emotional intelligence skill? Like I mentioned, a leader is always surrounded with people from different backgrounds, different environments, etc. So how do you improve it? Number one, you must have a listening ear. Be slow to speak, but quick to hear. And you must be calm. Don't always react. Before you react, before you give an answer, think about it. Ask yourself a question. Why has this person reacted in such a way? Where has this, to whom, what, how, before you respond. And again, you need to try and put yourself in their shoes to say, okay, when this person has reacted in such a way or is behaving in such a way, if I were them, how was I going to respond? So these are some of the things that you need to take when you want to improve your emotional intelligence. Like this time around, we are so much obsessed. A lot of people are so much obsessed with social media. So you could find maybe they've written an article about you being a leader. Do you respond immediately to what has been published on social media? So you need to ensure that you work on yourself. You manage yourself not to be always overreacting to certain things. And through that, you find that you start improving. Even when somebody comes to play on your emotions, you know they're saying, I think these are not serious. They're just trying to make me get upset or make an irrational decision.
Thank you, Esther. Monica, we've got a question from one of the participants. They say, should we share the planned failure with our team previously to the development of a project? What's your take on that?
So I think that you should develop the plan for the failure with your team. This is how I would do it. So it's basically, I wouldn't even, not only, again, for me personally, I think that it makes so much sense for your team to be a part of every important decision. Because they can have some insights that you don't. It's always great to have more people in the room to think about something from different angles. That's one. And two, because once the decision is made, we all need to be on the same page. We all need to be dedicated to making an effort. And if someone doesn't know where the decision came from, it is very difficult sometimes to get their engagement, and the right level of dedication to the project.
Thank you, Monica. Another question for you, Monica. And we're making you work hard this morning. How quick decision making and risk minimization in line with each other? How can they actually be in line with each other?
Yeah. So as mentioned, not all of the decisions that we are making should be made quickly. So as I mentioned to you, there are these one-way door decisions where we want to take as much time as we need to gather data and insights from others. But when it comes to the two-way door decisions, which I mean the decisions that can be reversed, or we can, we took this road, but we actually can go back and take this one, probably it's better to have a quick decision-making process, decide what are the risks related to this decision. So if we go that road and we fail, what does it mean? We again think about the risks prior to making this decision. It's usually a couple of maybe hours of an exercise, maybe an hour. And then we decide, does it make sense for us to go or does it make sense for us to research further? In many cases, you will find that actually it's better to try things out actually in reality, as opposed to thinking about it and overthinking it over and over again. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Thank you, Monica. And this, I would say, the last question, because we're running now out of time, for both of you, both Esther and Monica, what is your preferred leadership style? Esther, would you like to go first?
Basically, I would love to be, my preferred leadership style is to be a liberal one, not a dictator. Somebody who basically works with everybody around to ensure that the intended purpose and vision of the institution, as well as your vision, is fulfilled. So basically one who's liberal and works with everybody that's around them.
Thank you, Esther.
I couldn't agree more. What I like when I run teams, what I like myself, I quickly run to get the book, is the concept called radical candor. It's a concept that was basically coined by Kim Scott. If you're interested, this is the book for you. And basically radical candor says, as a leader, care personally about your team. So basically care personally about them. Make sure that you are basically helping them, seeing them as people, as human beings, but then challenge them directly. So challenge them directly means give them honest feedback, make sure that they are improving, make sure that you are honest with them as a person. So care personally and challenge directly. I think this is what works really, really well for engaging team members and making sure that they are heard and seen as people and not only as employees of the organization.
Amazing. Thank you so much, both. Thank you, Yehuda, my colleague, for putting all this whole series together for advancing women leadership skills. We certainly hope that you all have taken something from these 3 sessions, and we will obviously put this last one as well up in our social media and our YouTube channel. And I want to thank very, very much my lovely Esther. It was Esther, you were in one of my courses, and I really enjoyed your friendship and appreciated that you joined us in this last session. And Monica, again, so lovely to see you. And thank you so much for being with us. And the rest of you, please continue coming to our sessions. We've got loads of different activities in our social media. And of course, look up in our website for future courses and conferences and seminars. And I hope you enjoy it as much as we have this whole series. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you.
Just one last word that I noticed in the comment section that we have participants from Tanzania. We would like to send our condolences for the passing of the Tanzanian president. We had a lot of participants who attended our courses and seminars from Tanzania. So that's the final point that I have to say. And thank you.
Keep well. Lots of health. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Esther, my darling.